Liz, what's your favorite climb in Muir Valley?
Oh, that's a hard one. Probably anything that I can climb. Um, I guess I have two favorites of them. One of them is Indecision, which is a trad route, and I've never climbed a trad. I've only followed on it many times, but I love the view from it. I love the moves on Indecision. And the other one is Dynamite. That's just a really fun route that the holds are just there exactly where you need them, and it's fun to do.
So, tell me about tell me about your exposure to climbing. Tell me about when you first went climbing. Did you go rappelling first, or you were going to go rappelling and then you ended up climbing?
No, I did rappel first. I saw some guys at a nature area rappelling down a waterfall, and this is when we were in our mid 50s, I guess. And I said, "Oh, that's the one thing I regret that I never tried before I was too old to do it." And Rick had a fellow that was working for him that taught cave rescue, and so also taught rappelling. And Bill said, "Oh, I could teach Liz to climb, to rappel really easily." And so he said, "Would you be interested in doing it?" I said, "Oh, I'd love to." So he took me rappelling. In fact, we actually rigged a rope up about 70 feet into an oak tree on some vacation property that we had. And we would go up the 70 feet in the tree and then rappel down off of it. And I was so disappointed in it because I thought rappelling was going to be something that there was really something to learn about, some techniques, some skill involved, and it was nothing. And so I told him, he said, "How did you like it?" And I didn't want to burst his bubble, but I didn't really like it. I thought it's kind of a waste of time. So I said, "Well, how do you get back up once you rappel down?" And he taught me how to prusik up the rope. And that sounded good to me. That, I felt like I was accomplishing something. It was something that I would have never guessed that I could do. And so that was great. And then Rick found out, well, if you do rock climbing instead of prusik up the rope, you get to buy gear, you get to buy equipment. And so he said, "Let's try it." And we went to the gym first and tried climbing. And I did not know that he didn't like it at the time. He said all the time that he was on the wall, all he could think about was looking down and saying, "Get me down from here." But I just found it exhilarating. And I felt like this is really something I'd like to do more of. And so Rick was really encouraging, and we did more of it. And I think the next place that we climbed was a highway cut in southern Indiana that was about 25 to 30 foot cliff of limestone. And the features in the limestone were basically where they had drilled holes to put dynamite in when they blasted out on it. But other than that, in Indiana, we have highway cuts and barn silos to climb. So we started coming down to Kentucky. We considered that our home crag. And we made a lot of trips down here to enjoy climbing together. A friend of ours mentioned that he had some property that he wanted us to see. It wasn't his property, but he was real interested in buying a lot on that property as vacation home, or not vacation, retirement property on it. And we went out. It was really a lot that was on the rim of Muir Valley. It somewhat overlooked Muir Valley, but you didn't have a really good view. And we said, "Yeah, that's really nice. But what about this stuff down here? There's cliffs and stuff." And so we went down to look at it. And Rick got really interested in it. And so we said, "Is it possible that we can talk to the owner of this property today?" And he made a call. The owner didn't live too far away, so he came over to talk to us. And we saw cliff lines that were things that we'd never dreamed of climbing before, but they just looked like they had so much potential. And it was set in this beautiful setting of all kinds of vegetation and nature things, just a really pleasant environment. And I could tell right away that Rick was just itching to get this property. And we made an agreement that day. It was in August of 2003. And made an agreement that Rick and I were going to buy that property. And that's what became the southern portion of Muir Valley. We've got a lot of friends that are climbers, and people have been so good to us. You know, the natural reaction, I think, of two people who are in their mid-50s that say, "I'd like to take up rock climbing," is I think people would kind of back away real quick and not want to get involved in that. And instead, people were very encouraging, very supportive of us. They helped us learn what gear to buy, what we needed. how to get started on it, safety things that we needed. And so it was kind of a chance to give back to the climbing community. We said, okay, we've got a lot of friends that are climbing. If we just open it free to the public, we'll get probably a couple hundred people a year, and we can handle that. We're good at projects. That would be fun. And that's what we did. We thought if we opened it free to the public, we might get 200 people a year, and we could handle that.
And then
the final year that we had it, which was 2014, we had 45,000 people visit Muir Valley. By no means did we think it would grow to the level that it had. We thought it was just something we could spend weekends taking care of it, and some of our friends could enjoy it. When we bought the valley, it had been used, portions of it had been used as an illegal trash dump. And it tended to be concentrated in certain areas of the valley within minor amounts of trash spread throughout the valley on it. But there were things that, for instance, wheelchairs pushed over the cliff just because somebody didn't need it anymore and Medicare had paid for it, or Medicaid had paid for it. Why bother giving it to somebody? To car hoods, mattresses, whole rooms of carpeting rolled up, thousands and thousands of broken beer bottles and cans. And we had started out just coming down on vacation, spending a week at a time, loading it up and carrying it out on a little trailer that we had. Do you want me to stop there?
No,
I don't know how
no.
far you want me to go on. When, after a few months of that, we heard that there was this program called Kentucky Pride, whereby they would make county trucks available to people. You weren't allowed to drive the trucks. They would drive them there. You would load them up with trash to get rid of, and they would haul them out for you, and there was no charge for it. And I just happened to hear about that because I was in the judge executive's office in Campton, which is the county seat, and I overheard a telephone call while I was waiting in his office, and I said, boy, we could really use some help getting rid of some of this trash. Could we get one of those trucks? And he said, well, I'm really sorry, but all of the pickup trucks are already spoken for. We can't do it. The only thing that we've got available are the big county highway trucks, the big gravel hauler trucks. And I said, oh, we could use that. We can do that. And so they agreed to bring that truck down. And we spent all day loading the truck. They wouldn't load it for you, but they would haul it off. And we pulled out mattresses and stuck them upright, so they raised the sides of the truck, and we filled that truck with all kinds of trash on it. And the guy gets ready to take it. And I said, where are you scheduled to go after this? Who are you going to be helping out next? And this was in the morning, fairly early that we got started. And he said, well, I don't really have anything else unless somebody's called in. So I said, could you come back here again? And he did. We started out during a Kentucky Pride program where they furnished large trucks, filling 3 large gravel off-highway trucks with trash and taking it out, and realizing that we had barely made a dent in the trash. So we were lucky enough after that to get a grant where they hired not only the trucks, but they also paid the labor for people to bring it out. And they hauled about 75 to 80 additional trucks of the large highway trucks, not a pickup truck, but an off-highway gravel truck on it. So we got rid of a lot of it that way. I don't think we ever really got discouraged because Rick and I tend to feed on each other and keep each other encouraged, and we like working on projects together. Friends of Muir Valley was originally a casual volunteer organization on it. They had no officers other than a chairman, and we gave them money to fund things like trail days. We paid all of the expenses of trail days. And we started telling people who came to us and wanted to donate, rather than saying, no, we don't accept donations, we started telling them, don't donate to us, donate to Friends of Muir Valley on it. And then they had a commitment to submit an application to become a 501c3 organization, but it was actually took several years before they got the application submitted. But when they got it, then we started to become a lot more serious about let's nurture this organization, let's get them funding, and let's see if they can be the ultimate recipient of Muir Valley, because Rick and I wanted to have a organization that would be able to manage it in perpetuity. We wanted it to be available to the public beyond our lifetime. It was kind of unusual in the climbing community, but Rick and I felt that a love of nature and wanting to preserve nature and climbing were not mutually exclusive. They weren't contradictory to each other, that real climbers, for the most part, appreciated nature. If they understood the impact on nature of what some of their actions were, they tended to be cooperative about it. And so we set up Muir Valley as a combination climbing arena and nature preserve. Initially, when we got the valley, you could not go from the south end to the north end without going through briars that were more than head high and swampland that you would sink into. And so we did a lot of clearing that out, building a road so that people could pass and we could do maintenance on it and also do rescue if somebody were injured. And really turning it into something that could showcase the nature rather than destroy the nature. It became an area that was really popular for bird watching because of the terrain and the vegetation was a great environment for birds, and a lot of other wildlife. We had a lot of deer, fox. We had a black bear, but a local hero shot the black bear. He thought he was protecting somebody. He thought it would escape Muir Valley and do damage. We also identified areas that had really unusual or rare natural features. Maybe they were rare plants. We have a lot of orchids in Muir Valley and a lot of things that are just particularly striking. And we tried to channel climbing away from those areas to protect them. Yes, we were very surprised because we knew we were nuts, but we didn't realize that other people would put that much emphasis on it. And we had so much help from people volunteering. And this wasn't glamorous work. This was dirty work. It was hard work. And I'm sure a lot of them would have rather been out climbing. But they spent a lot of time building trails with us, working. The route setters were another example. That's hard work to set a route. It's a lot easier to climb a route than it is to set the route, to develop it on it. And those people put a lot of work into it. But we realized it pretty quickly that this was going to be an ongoing thing. It wasn't going to be something that we could pour a bunch of money into it and it suddenly would be complete and there would be no other challenges, no other work to be done. And we knew that we were not going to live forever. So that's the reason that we started trying to raise money for Friends of Muir Valley and empowering that and also nurturing that organization because a lot of them were learning like we were. Paying for parking was actually several years in evolution. And it came about because it was clear that raising funds to keep Muir Valley solvent and operational after we were dead and not putting money into it was going to be necessary on it. So we started in about 2011. We contacted an attorney and we were interested in finding out if we could charge for parking, if Friends of Muir Valley could charge for parking if we eventually gave it to them and not jeopardize their protection under the Kentucky Recreational Use Statute. So that by 2016 they were able to initiate the pay for parking plan on it. And it has raised enough income that they can keep Muir Valley because we had basically had it built, had all the land available at that time. To keep it sustained beyond that point did not take nearly as much money. So they have enough pay for parking that they can basically pay their expenses and do some development and some great ideas that they have. One of the first things that we did is put in restrooms, public restrooms in the barn. And that was unusual. I don't think any other climbing area had restrooms for climbers on it at that time. I don't think we had actually seen it out climbing that really registered because most climbing areas take the attitude that climbing and nature are competing forces, that you're going to damage nature if you allow climbing, and they kind of keep them separated on it. It was more a matter of we saw so much beauty in Muir Valley, and we saw so many climbers that appreciated nature and appreciated the beauty, and if they knew what they could do to enjoy climbing and still avoid damaging nature, they would cooperate on it, and they did for the most part. I think a combination of things that has kept my love of climbing along. One, the people that are involved in it. We have met so many terrific people in climbing, so many different types of people, but yet all of them pretty special in it. And that's a big plus in climbing. But in addition to that, and it's a little bit different for every climber, but for me, some people think climbing is real muscular, push through it hard, take risks on it. And to me, climbing is not taking risks. I think Rick has mentioned it before. It's managing risk. It's being able to achieve something without putting myself or somebody else at unreasonable risk. And it's a problem-solving exercise. It's what are the physics of getting up that wall without falling and achieving something. And it's a feeling of exhilaration, because I look at a wall. I probably have never walked up into a wall and said, I can handle that. I can climb that. I've always had doubt when I walk up to it, and each move comes after another as a problem solution. And it's exhilarating when you get to the top of a wall that you didn't think you could climb. Muir Valley's future at this point has far exceeded anything that I had ever hoped for, because climbing has become so much more popular throughout the years. So Muir Valley mushroomed far faster than we thought it would. And it's made a lot of opportunities for us. Eventually, people may decide that climbing is not that great after all, and it may die off. And if it does, I hope Muir Valley continues to exist as a park that people enjoy to come and be out in nature, to hike, to enjoy the waterfalls and the flowers. But I think it's going to be popular for climbing for quite a while. It may sound egotistical, but I look at Rick and I think we were able to give back to people that meant a lot to us, and I think we've been successful well beyond what we had a right to expect. Partly things just fell into place with climbing becoming so popular, but partly we attracted such a wonderful group of people. And it's a good feeling. I think Rick and I surprised each other that we both felt so passionate about this that we wanted to change our retirement plans and buy this land and make something of it. I think one thing that we haven't hit on a lot is the volunteers at Muir Valley have been what made it possible, not just the formal Friends of Muir Valley organization, but the kids that stop me on the trail and say, hey, we've climbed really hard for 2 days. We need a rest day. Can we volunteer and do something here? And then they'll spend that time digging trees out of the creek to keep it from blocking a culvert, or moving rocks here. I mean, this is not a rest day, folks, but they make it their rest day as a way of giving back to Muir Valley. The volunteerism is very important to Muir Valley, not just for the activity that they do and the results that they achieve, but it's people having some skin in the games, and they think twice about veering off trail where it will cause erosion, or dropping some trash because it's inconvenient to put it in their backpack and things like that. It makes Muir Valley, their place, and they help take care of it. You know, I feel like you raise your daughter, and this is my only child. You raise your daughter her whole life to be independent and to be able to form a union with somebody that's special, and you see her walk down the aisle and you think, you better be good to her. That's the way I feel about Muir Valley. This was not the retirement that we planned on, but we have spent every weekend for 15 years driving a 10-hour or 9-hour maybe round trip with 2 cats and 2 computers. And that's been our retirement, and I wouldn't change it for a thing. I thought I was going to go to Australia and New Zealand. That could go away in an instant. We feel good about what people have helped us make Muir Valley become.